Welcome to the Postpartum Coach podcast, where we embrace our needs as moms, we learn to lead ourselves first, then our families, and where we create our own healing from the inside out to find our way to the work we were meant to do in this world. I'm your host, a fellow mom of 3 and a certified life coach, Lizzie Langston. Hey everybody, it's so good to be with you. As some of you guys know, we are celebrating 100,000 downloads of the Postpartum Coach podcast this week, and you have a chance to leave me a review. I decided I want to do 2 $100 giveaways instead of just one $100 giveaway. So I'm going to spend $200 celebrating 100,000 downloads of this amazing resource that I feel like heaven has helped inform what needs to go on here, or the universe, however you want to say that. And I just am grateful every day that I get to use a really, really hard time in my life to bring light and hope to all of you. I want to let you in on something. I've been feeling a little bit lonely today in my business. I think it's because it's summer and I'm switching between assistants, and I just have been behind the scenes a lot, actually, less content creation and more getting things organized to be able to really grow this program and bring it to you guys once my kids are in school next week. And all summer long, I've been redoing my website and all these, this just the behind the scenes stuff. And I feel like I just need connection with y'all. So one thing I've asked is that you leave a review on the podcast. And I mentioned how that's to celebrate 100,000 downloads, but I also feel like it's for me. Sometimes when I hit these milestones, you guys, I just want to feel like I'm making a difference. And you guys, I trust that it is, because randomly people will share things with me, but I would so love it and appreciate it if you would take the time to either DM me on Instagram, I'm at lizzie.postpartumcoach, or email me, lizzie@lizzieLangston.com, or most preferably, possibly, if not 2 or 3 of these options, but most preferably, just because it also helps the business as well as I get to see it, is leave me a written review on Apple Podcasts. Because yes, we're celebrating 100,000 downloads. And again, at these milestones, I get nostalgic as a business owner and as a human. And I think, is it as exciting as I think it is? Is this really helping people? So you help me as a person, and as the person that's putting, so much fuel and energy happily into creating this resource. It's so helpful to the future life and continuation of the podcast to hear back from you guys. So if you wouldn't mind, I would so appreciate you just pausing real quick, going down, leaving me a written review. I don't feel like it's that hard. I've done it before. I mean, I always put it off forever and then I finally do it. So this is my invitation for you to just do it. And again, I'm going to give away I'm going to draw 2 names in this giveaway. $100 gift cards to the store of your choice. It can be Amazon. It can be a cute dress shop online that you love. It can be Barnes & Noble. As long as they have a digital gift card that I can get you, you get to choose. I'm giving away 2. This is the last week to enter, okay? Because by next Thursday, we will probably have hit 100,000 downloads. So this is the week to do it. Do it tonight. Do it today. And everybody who's already left a review is going to be included in the drawing. And then any new reviews are also going to be included. 2 $100 gift cards. Okay, that's enough about that. Thanks for hearing me out. It's so important to me to celebrate this with you. And you guys leaving reviews and me giving gift cards makes it feel like we have connection and interaction, and I'm getting to know you guys. Speaking of reviews, I pulled up one of the new reviews that somebody left on my podcast as part of this celebration of 100,000 downloads. There were a couple of them, so I'm just going to read one today and then I'll read one another day. This one is called The Start of a New Chapter. It's a 5-star review by Summer Girl 93. So whoever you are, Summer Girl, I see you and I am so grateful to you that you left this review. Thank you so much. Okay, she said, This podcast and Lizzie herself has been one of the most inspired finds of my life. I've struggled postpartum in so many ways that I couldn't understand or put into words, but Lizzie's deep understanding of women and especially postpartum has helped me to move forward in the direction I've wanted to go for so long but felt stuck. She's helped me start a new chapter of motherhood and life. Oh, I just got the feels. She's helped me start a new chapter of motherhood and life. That feels so significant. Thank you so much, SummerGirl93, for your 5-star review. I cherish it. You guys, I read all of these. They mean everything to me. And I so appreciate it when you take the time to write these reviews. I wish I could give everybody a $100 gift card. Like, that's literally how much I appreciate it. But what I will give you instead, if you don't win, that is more podcast episodes. I'll give you that even if you do win. But just know that it is helping the future of this podcast and the energy that I put and the time to be here. Okay, so today I want to share my story, or what I wish I would have known, part 3. I feel like I could do 50 parts to this because my whole life could be like a what I wish I would have known. But I'm really part 1, if you haven't heard it, I would start with part 1 and part 2. They're just within the last 10 podcast episodes. These are not very far apart. So in part 1, we went over early motherhood and even a little bit of my childhood growing up. I decided I wanted to be a little more vulnerable and open up a little bit more and share more about some of my childhood experiences that I feel like influenced my motherhood and my transition to becoming a mom in that very first postpartum phase. And really every postpartum phase is a transition because it's different every time and we're deeper and deeper into ourselves and into motherhood every time. So that was part 1 of this series. Part 2 was finding life coaching and starting a business, but still delegating my motherhood in ways that were uncomfortable for me and that were, to my knowledge, kind of unprecedented in my matriarchal line on both sides of my family. I used childcare and a preschool for the purpose of childcare, even though they weren't in school yet. Stuff like that. And so I talked about my healing all through that and sort of the long game of mental health recovery after having such a low after my 3rd baby. And I also shared some lessons that I've learned as a woman in business and how healing business has actually been. So that's really cool. That was what I wish I would have known, part 2. So if you haven't heard that, go check it out. And then today I'm going to be sharing, as my business got bigger and the circumstances of the pandemic changed our life situation, I chose to become the full-time breadwinner. I feel like the universe kind of handed it to me / maybe I manifested it because I kind of wanted it, but it was also like, I think a little bit more than I realized, like I bit off a little more than I could chew, but it was also such a growing experience. So I'm going to be sharing that. And that includes a international trip to Costa Rica for 7 months as a family. And then back here to the US, we're in Arizona now. And the profound and intense healing that happened as we went to Costa Rica. And there's some really good lessons in this episode, so be sure to hang out till the end. I'm also going to be sharing about my 12-week program, so stick around to the end if you haven't heard about that or you're interested in joining, because we are starting, my friends. We are starting at the end of August, and this is going to be an amazing 12-week cohort together, women feeling close. It's like a sisterhood. I just wrapped up this same program with a different cohort of women about a month and a half ago. And I've been going through those recordings and really thinking about this next cohort and how I want to make it even better. And we're going to be incorporating a little bit of yoga potentially into it as well. And the course is just getting better. There's so much there for you. So I can't wait to tell you more about that. Okay. So let's dive in to my story, or, what I wish I would have known. Part 3. So I grew the business. I made my first $100,000 as a freaking life coach and a freaking mom. Like, I still don't even know how that, I do know how it happened, but I feel blessed and I feel humbled and I feel like ecstatic about like what a woman can do with her creative life force, whether she wants to create a baby and a family, whether she wants to create a business or a company, like whatever it is, music, art. I just love it. I love being a woman, and I love teaching women. I love learning from women. I love women in business. I love watching women just heal and recover and then alchemize their pain into amazing things in the world in so many different forms. It is just awesome. I love this life, seriously. So, like I kind of mentioned, I was going along doing my business. I had plans to do this kind of high-end mastermind to really grow my business. Maybe in like another 18 months. Well, then we could see that my husband was going to lose his job pretty soon with the pandemic. Everybody was kind of getting laid off, and he was a contracted employee at the time because he did his his job part-time because he also owned a business, a co-working space in Denver. And so we could see he was going to get laid off. So I joined this mastermind in advance, and I essentially had to kind of quadruple my income in order to bring our family through the pandemic income wise. Now, my husband technically could have just turned around and looked for a job, and he might have been able to get one amidst the pandemic. But we just decided to go ahead and try it out. Let's just try him staying home, me providing. And it was intense, and I worried about money like all the time. I got better about worrying about money. I didn't worry about it as much about a year or so in, but I still it kind of was always on, somewhere in my body, on my heart. What I wish I would have known about growing a business like that quickly, because like I said, I kind of had to quadruple my income pretty quick. And by the way, women like lifted me up. I was part of this program. It's called 2K for 2K with Stacey Bayman. It's a great program to learn sales and marketing for coaches. Anyway, so I was in that program, and it's like a ton of women. And I literally just posted in there one day, and I was like, you guys, I'm pretty sure my husband's going to lose his job, and we don't even know if his company's going to make it. And I'm making like $2,400 a month or something. At that time, I was just kind of like, it was more of like a jobby hobby thing. But I always wanted it to be a big girl business. And so this was actually the opportunity that I probably would have never chose for myself, but it definitely made me step it up as a business owner and like get serious and get strategic and get more financially savvy and all the things. It was kind of, yeah. Anyway, so, women just kind of came out of the woodwork, you guys. It was amazing. And anyway, what I wish I would have known is that, is like what a grounded nervous system felt like. I didn't actually know what a grounded nervous system felt like. And I want to offer to you, you might not know. I can't say you don't know. I don't want to say that because how would I know that? But in my experience, many of us women come out of our families of origin and into the, young adult world. And whether we are, like sexually active and having multiple relationships and maybe living with a partner, or whether we are not having sex and waiting till we're married and then getting married and then having kids, or any shade of gray in between any of those two scenarios. The truth is that I find, this is my truth, I guess, is that a lot of women bring the sort of nervous system tone, we're going to call it. And I'll explain that a little bit in a second. But the tone of their nervous system and sort of their rhythm, or I'm going to call it your baseline, their emotional baseline and their ability to get calm. However that was in your family growing up, unless you go to therapy or get coaching or do something to sort of work at it, it typically just follows you and it continues to be exactly how it was growing up within your other relationships in your life. Now, that doesn't mean that you are treated or you treat people the same way that it all was growing up, for better or for worse. But it does mean that you bring your pace with you is the word that I'm thinking of. So let me try to give you an example. So let's say you're on a treadmill and you have a certain pace and you're at it's a good pace for you. It feels comfortable and you like it. That's like your pace. And so if you then go run on a different treadmill, you're going to press all the buttons and try to get yourself down to that pace, even if the buttons are different, even if the location is different. Like within more or less, you're going to want to be at that same pace because it's normal for you. And I feel like with our nervous systems and with trauma and with anxiety and our ability to get calm, that same thing happens. So the tricky part is a lot of us don't actually know that what we experienced during childhood was traumatic, or we haven't yet identified in this phase of our lives. You know, the 38 to 40-year-old, 50-year-old women, they've done this work. Their nervous systems have given this to them. But a lot of those of us that are on this podcast are between 20 and 40. And in that phase of life, honestly, many of us are kind of unaware of our childhood trauma because it really just hasn't been that long since we were living under our parents' roof. And we haven't yet had a chance to really see it all play out and identify trauma. As crazy as that sounds. Now, some of us have more than others of us. But the reason I bring this up is because when we're not aware of, number one, like what trauma even is, and then number two, where it is like still sitting in our bodies and in our nervous systems from past experiences growing up, then we're not able to even detect that we are running at a fast pace. Okay. So going back to what I said earlier, what I wish I would have known when I took over as our family's financial provider, sole financial provider at that time, I wish I would have known that I wasn't actually in a grounded, calm nervous system. Like I thought I knew what calm was because I only had postpartum anxiety and panic attacks to compare it to. But I was still sitting, if we're on a scale of 1 to 10 of anxiety, and postpartum when it was really bad, I was between like an 8 and a 10. I was still living at like a 6 most of the time. But I thought that I was, quote, over it, and I was becoming a coach and all these things. And I should have been because I knew a lot and I could help people, but I didn't know until, a year later after the financial situation and moving to Costa Rica and having depression and having my nervous system bring up trauma and me actually see it and recognize it as trauma. I didn't know that there was so many more degrees of calm that I could get to. And I didn't know that I could actually almost have a full personality change, like go from a bubbly extrovert to an introvert actually in many ways because of how calm I was in my most natural state. And your most natural state is available to you when you are able to identify and release trauma. So the fun part about this, just to sum up this little point here, is that if you would like to be more like, those people who talk less or who, I always wanted to be someone who talked less. I don't know if that ever happened. Actually, I do think it's like that sometimes in crowded rooms a little bit more anyway, or with smaller groups. But, if there's some qualities that you would really like to have, it's possible that you actually have them when you are more regulated in your nervous system, which sometimes takes years or at least months of learning about this stuff. So the fun is yet to come. It could still be ahead of you. But anyway, that's what I wish I would have known, but I didn't. So on we go. I do this thing. We decide to sell our house and go to Costa Rica because we're both working remote and it was a great time to sell. So we did that and we go down to Costa Rica. And one of my intentions in going to Costa Rica was to heal my relationship with my mom, which at that time, it had always felt amazing. And then I had like memories surfacing, and they weren't even like, other people might think that they weren't traumatic, but for whatever reason, whether I'm sensitive or whether they really were traumatic or whether it was some combination of both, I ended up with a lot of stuff in my nervous system that needed to be processed around both my parents and my siblings and all of my life. And I think this is honestly normal. I think most of us either would do this if we went into the trauma work, or we do this. And so I'm not here to disparage my family. The focus is on my nervous system and its reaction to its environment and the healing work that was required to get me to a healthy place mentally, emotionally, and somatically. So in Costa Rica, I hired a coach and I really worked at better understanding my own trauma and my own triggers and my parents and the way I was raised, and really just kind of bringing that up and looking at it with my new adult eyes. Now that I'd been through some things and I, have my own family, it was just time. And our bodies really dictate that process. I want you to know that you kind of just feel called. You'll know it's time when you feel really intrigued by these sorts of stories and you start to wonder, is it time for me? And then you start to get little confirmations or just curiosities about that, and you feel drawn or even thirsty to learn about this stuff. Another way to know that you're ready is when you're experiencing things that you've never experienced before that kind of seem to stick around, like panic attacks or anxiety or PTSD or postpartum depression or OCD or depressiveness or just overwhelm and like a paralyzing amount of overwhelm, or chronic pain or health problems, autoimmune disease. A lot of these can be related to trauma that's being stored in the nervous system. So hopefully that gives you some introspection, some things to consider. Because this is the work we do in my 12-week program. I mean, we don't start with the trauma stuff right away because I'm a firm believer that postpartum women first need to be able to be calm on a day-to-day basis in the daily things that they're doing, because they need to be able to function. We can't just pause life and deep dive into trauma and not function and bring it all up and have this horrible, reaction. No, we take it in bite-sized pieces, and we always make sure that we have tools to keep us functional to begin with so that we can delve into the deeper stuff and still be more or less okay. That's my intention with my 3-step process: calm your body, calm your mind, calm your life. And that's all within my program that we go through. So going back to, we got to Costa Rica, I worked with this amazing coach and we had so much fun in Costa Rica, and there was so much healing to do. I got really, really curious. Speaking of curiosity leading the way, my natural curiosities and desires have always just sort of been my guideposts. And I just naturally got really curious about ancestry. And I've always, I'm in a church that I feel like makes a pretty big emphasis on, if you hear weird noises, that's my dog on the leather couch. But I'm in a church that makes pretty big emphasis on genealogy and knowing, doing family history work is what it's called or whatever. But for me, this was different. This wasn't as much about spiritual, doing their work in the temple or anything like that. This was really just about, I want to know how they lived. I want to know the history and where they lived. I want to know what rituals were theirs. What prayers did they say? What songs did they sing? What did they believe about heaven and hell, or their version of it? Did they believe in one god or gods and goddesses? And so I looked up into my Nordic ancestry. I have Danish roots, a lot of Danish on my dad's side. And it was so healing, so fascinating, got way into it. I worked with this amazing ancestral healing coach named Tori Feldman. Her company is at Sacred Ancestry on Instagram. I think it's just sacredancestry.com. And actually, she's going to be on this podcast later in August, I think. So I'm so pumped about that. But anyway, I did journeys, spiritual journeys. I had a great grandmother come to me and teach me and be with me. And it was so incredible. So this was the type of stuff that I went to Costa Rica to do. And I feel like just being in that environment of the ocean, we were right on the beach. We were actually our first 3 or 4 months, we were out in the farmlands in this amazing big gated community that was just gorgeous. And it was beyond words. So that was me in Costa Rica. And then something significant happened. So we then moved more inland. We were in the Tamarindo area in Guanacaste, which is the northwest coast of Costa Rica. And you guys, I really want to be vulnerable with you on this one, but out of respect for just friends and family who might have been involved, I just am not going to go into details, which feels kind of like a bummer to me, but I know you guys understand. And so the point is that about mid-January of 2022, there was a significant event that kind of catapulted me into this anxious, depressive back and forth state. And this was really new for me because the last time, remember, I was ever depressed, and the only times I've ever been depressed were after babies, like postpartum. So this was not postpartum. I mean, my youngest at this time was 4.5. And so it was kind of alarming, but I had done a lot of work with depression and anxiety in the past and also with my clients regularly. And so I kind of put my own curriculum to work. And I would love to say that that was enough, but honestly, like for me, I actually had to quit with my coach and hire a therapist and join a group for coaches that worked with, it was a very trauma-informed group. And I learned about trauma for the first time, like in a way that mattered to me and that would very much come to influence my business and my practice and how I coach and even my program. So about mid-January to mid-April of 2022, this year, I was more or less, sometimes more, sometimes a little less, but I felt like a lot of more depressive. And I ended up choosing to get on antidepressants about the end of April. But mid-January to mid-April, every week I met with this group for coaches that was with a therapist and a trauma-informed coach, and I was getting informed about trauma for the sake of my practice, but mostly at that point, I was using it for me to understand my own body's responses because you guys, I was having night wakings. I was questioning every relationship in my life, including my marriage, which was extremely uncomfortable and really not like me. But my nervous system just did a total flip 180. And yeah, it was extremely like crazy challenging. But if you go back and listen to episodes, it was like anywhere from like mid-March to mid-April of 2022 on this podcast, you're going to hear me talk about depression and my experiences going through it at that time. And it was incredible. And I'm not just saying that to be overly positive. I genuinely can tell you my experience with depression was incredible. There's an episode called Depression is a Ceremony with Yourself. And check that one out if you are in depression or depressiveness. Because the universe, if you want to call it, or my body or both, revealed so much to me. And I guess what I wish I would have known that I eventually learned at the end of these 3 months of depression is that depression really is a gift. And it can be scary. I am not going to say it can't be. And I do encourage medical intervention if you feel called to do that and you feel comfort or security in having it. So I'm definitely not anti-meds. And I don't think we talk enough about the unveiling that can potentially happen that can change your life forever in the best way during a mental health, a period of depression. I believe, and I've said this before, but I do believe that anxiety and depression are two of many ways that our body and our subconscious mind, which has our healing, our true deepest healing always as a priority. They are ways that our body and subconscious mind uses to get our conscious attention so that we can wake up essentially, and our ego can die. Our ego is like the part of us that gets very attached to certain parts of our identity and kind of really cares about what other people think and, keeping up with the Joneses. And that's kind of a lame explanation for an ego, but I have a podcast episode on this podcast called like, What is the Ego? So you can check that out too. But yeah, and so that we can awaken. So I believe that these symptoms actually lead us into ourselves, into our true selves. They lead us into a layer of being that is more aligned than the layer of being we were living in before the symptoms occurred. So let me say that one more time. In other words, I believe that depression and anxiety and even diseases or chronic illnesses or autoimmune chronic pain, I believe that the purpose of these from our subconscious is to get our attention so that we can focus more on healing. That doesn't mean that it's not scary or hard sometimes. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't get the medical world involved. That's just what I believe is the reason that they happen. Now, I believe there are other factors too that are not just that factor. I do believe that toxins and diet and sleep and, hormones or things in our body can also impact mental health. I do believe inflammation and neuroinflammation can impact our mental health, and even just our body health. But I also can see how our highest consciousness, like there's a plan and a reason, and it's always working to our good somehow. This is my belief. You don't have to believe it, and you can throw it out with the trash if you want to. Or if it doesn't serve you right now because you're dealing with cancer or something, and it just doesn't fit right, and it actually triggers you, like, please know that you don't have to believe this, and just tell yourself it's not true, because then it's not true for you. It doesn't need to be true for you. This is just what I believe, okay? So that was an adventure. We moved back to the States February 2022. And I basically took a month off of work, not because we had just moved, although that was definitely a factor, but because I needed to be with my depression. I needed to be with it because I could feel that I was going inward deeply and quickly. And I didn't want anything to get in the way of that, because I know that my depression is an extremely deep learning time for my soul. And I don't just say that like on a surface level. Like I genuinely, it feels like, if my belief is that was a time for me that the feminine divine, like Heavenly Mother, or however you want to call that, really called to me. I felt like, if you've heard of the goddesses, like Kali is the goddess of destruction. And I feel like that episode of depression was genuine, purposeful destruction from my highest source to bring my life to a different level and plane that I couldn't have gotten to had I not seen and received what my depression gave to me. So that was earlier this year. And something so crazy about that time is that I have never been as calm in my life as I am now that I've gone through that. I learned so much firsthand about the nervous system and about anxiety and calming anxiety. And I already knew, I feel like, kind of a lot, just because I'd been through so much anxiety and depression with my second and third babies. And then I'd coached, a few dozen clients. But this is just a totally different level. And it seriously just makes me so passionate and excited about helping women postpartum, because I feel like once your anxiety and depression are calmed, I have a whole nother section of the course I can take you through. Like I have part 2. I mean, we can go deep. There's so much deep. It's so good. I wanted to tell you guys, there's a couple different ways to work with me right now. Number one, there's the group coaching program where it's 12 weeks of live calls. They're recorded. You get them for life. You have access to my private podcast, my meditations, and of course, the postpartum anxiety course and the Better Than Normal Again coursework. And we kind of go through those together in the course, but you have access to those throughout the time that we're together. Then there's also private coaching, and private coaching is more for those who just know that they need or want more help. Maybe you just know you won't show up in a group. Maybe you just prefer, or maybe you have a really complicated mental health situation and you just feel like you need more help. Private coaching is available to those who go through the 12-week program. At the end of the program, if you're looking for more help, private coaching is right there. Some people just know that they want private from the beginning. So I just want you to know that you can just go to lizzieLangston.com/consult, and you can book a consult with me. And from there, we can figure out what the best fit is for you. It would be nice if you kind of already had an idea, but I can definitely help you, make an informed decision about the best way to work with me. So that's it for today. I really feel like the universe has taken me through my own process, and then later I developed it and put it out into the world in the form of the course. But calm your body, calm your mind, calm your life. I mean, essentially, first, when I was a brand new mom, my body was the first part of me that was like not acting normal. And I was having symptoms, but I didn't understand them. Then I began to understand them and I could do what I needed to do to calm them. But then my mind, was a little bit more active, and I struggled with anxiety and like really scary thoughts and worries. And I just couldn't get out of my head, or I'd be really, really numb with depression. And that's when I learned how to redirect my mind, how to balance my imagination, which is something that I teach you guys in the course. And that's really where I created the bulk of my content, was by my firsthand experience. I do think that's what sets my program apart. I was just talking to one of my private clients, and she's doing EMDR therapy. She's also has another therapist, and then she's doing private coaching with me. And I asked her, I was like, I'll get to the third part of the group in a second, but I was like, what do you get from coaching with me that you don't get in those two types of therapy? And she said, number one, warmth. And she's like, actually, therapists can be really warm, but some aren't. And I just love the warmth and the relationship I feel like I get to have with you, because my private clients can access me on Voxer, and we talk throughout the week. And sometimes we even hop on the phone for a quick 15-20 minute check-in if we need to, or if I feel like we need to. And so that was one thing. And then number two, which I thought was interesting, she actually said my spirituality and the feminine divine and just the feminine healing that I bring to the table. And I thought that was really, really neat. So I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I am also kind of like a Buddhist a little bit. I don't know. I don't stick with one thing. I have a very big conglomerate, and I'm very, very intuitive, which is a gift that I have been humbled to continue to see and witness in front of me, like as I'm on calls with wonderful women. I'm constantly surprised, but like also just groundedly humbled by the way that I can just sense things or pick things up from people, and also turn around and articulate, back to them, and just maneuver conversations. It's just incredible. And I'm so gifted. And I say that genuinely with gratitude and humility for that. And just joy to be able to experience my gifts like every day, essentially. So those were the things that she felt like my coaching and my program, my course content. Oh, and she also said, I'm like quoting her here. She also said that she loves the process of calm your body, calm your mind, calm your life, because a lot of therapy will go straight to the trauma stuff, which is the part 3 is calm your life. It's learning about trauma and the nervous system. It's kind of that more advanced stuff. And a lot of therapy delves right into that. But when you delve right into the deep stuff, it can really leave you very raw and exhausted for your family. And I know that firsthand. And so I purposefully, when I created my process that is specific to postpartum, a postpartum woman who has kids that rely on her, and maybe she's working a job too, or maybe she's stay at home. Either way, there's a lot demanded of her energy. I created this with women and kind of full scheduled women in mind, that have important people to help and take care of, and themselves too. So the calm your body and calm your mind process works as sort of like creating a baseline, a strong foundation of emotional regulation in you, so that when you get to part 3, where your trauma is starting to come up and you're working with your nervous system, you're not like bombarded by it and you're not taken down by it, right? Now, for me, I just happened to have a lot of deep trauma, and I wasn't taken down by it. Depression didn't take me down. And that's the thing, is like when I work with my clients, I'm never scared, because I know when I need to refer someone to a therapist. I've studied that in my trauma-informed, group with a therapist that was for coaches. I know when I need to refer somebody to a therapist. I will recommend therapy to my coaching clients if I think they need it in addition to coaching, or even instead of coaching. That's pretty rare. Usually, if anything, it's just in addition to, but there has been a couple times where I really felt like they just needed to be with a therapist and a coaching wasn't a fit for them. And I will tell you that. like straight up, because I don't want to be liable if your mental health isn't a fit for coaching. So what you can do is just get on a consult with me and let's talk about what's hurting, what's not doing well. What are you intuitively picking up on, for yourself that you're needing right now? And how can I help you get that? Last but not least, I want you to know I have some new freebies that are coming out. I meant to get them out a week ago, but you guys, we've had some problems with my website. So they should be up hopefully by this weekend, okay? So by August 1st for sure, July 29th, kind of in there, 2022. But I have some new freebies that I created, and one of them is all about helping you, advocate for yourself and get your needs. So just go to lizzieLangston.com/freebie. Or also, if you just go to lizzieLangston.com on the homepage, you'll see these freebies that you can sign up for. They're so good. I created them with so much love and intention and just really went above and beyond to just all out to help you guys. And I just love you so much. Thank you so much for your reviews. It was so fun to read yours today, Summer Girl 93. Thank you so much. And leave a review, you guys, on the podcast. Book a consult with me if you want to or are interested in joining the program or private coaching. Any way I can help you, I will help you. I'm happy to do free consults, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care. Bye.